Good evening, and thank you for tuning into Culture Shock on Radio Korea. I'm your host, Michael Kim, filling in for Michael Won.
And my name is Young Kim. I am the contents director, and thank you for joining me here today on this Juneteenth edition, Michael.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
All right, so once again, if you guys just tuned in, Michael Won, he is going to be out for a couple of weeks. He's on vacation, taking a trip with his family, so he'll be back. As soon as he's back, we'll be back in action with that. Now, we're going to just go ahead and jump into the show today. Today is the Juneteenth edition, and did you even know that Juneteenth was a federal holiday? It is.
Yes, I did know.
Oh, you did know?
Yes.
I didn't know.
Well,
And I didn't even know what Juneteenth was, to be honest with you, for a while. But now I know, so I'll read
Great.
what it says. It's a federal holiday in the U.S. commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. Okay, so it is a very meaningful holiday. Happy Juneteenth to you.
yeah, happy Juneteenth. Yeah.
And yesterday was Father's Day, so I hope all the fathers out there had a good day yesterday. And joining us today is a very special guest. He is my mentor in a way, and also someone who influenced me. He was an idol back
Yeah,
in the days.
if you listen to K-pop in the 90s, especially 90s K-pop, hip-hop, R&B, everyone knows this guy. So, yeah, Young.
Don't you think it was very meaningful that they're all from LA, the LA area?
Yeah, from the LA area. I think that's a big clue who we have on here, yeah.
And I used to sing their songs every night at
We all
Norebang
did, yeah, at
in
the
my
Norebang.
drunken escapades of my 20s, my
Right.
30s, and I tried it again in my 40s, and it just didn't work out. Joining us is Ijun, formerly of Solid or of Solid, right?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Dude, Young, how
Glad
you
to be
been?
here.
How you been?
Very good.
Real good, right?
Very. Yeah, just rested, I guess.
So you just came back from France
Yes.
and jet lagged.
A little bit, but I had a good sleep, so I think I'm okay.
Doesn't jet lag like hit you a little bit harder at this age than it did when you're in 20s? When you go on tours when you're in your 20s, it's like you just kind of get over it, right? But
Yeah.
I noticed like jet lag, it hits me for like a good 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 1
Right.
week recovery and another week of just kind of like dazed and confused. And then it finally comes back, I think.
I don't know. It's been okay for me. I just actually met someone yesterday who told me that after they came back from France a few months ago, he had to he was on jet lag for a month.
Yeah.
So he was seeing a doctor, getting a prescription. Nothing worked. It sort of just faded naturally, and I'm lucky I'm not experiencing any of that right now.
Really?
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you for coming here. We really appreciate it. And, what brings you in today? Like, how did you, get to come onto the show?
Well,
I call
John or
I've
Young,
been calling him.
Young?
yeah, have been friends for quite a long time, and
He was my producer.
yeah,
Oh, I
I produced the Uptown album. Was it the fourth album? I can't remember.
It was the Uptown fourth album. It was the songs UPT Paradox.
Right.
There was also Rock This Mother, beep,
Yeah, there's like 4 songs.
where he DJ'd and all that. There was also there was a few others. Rock This Mother.
Yeah.
So there was a few of them.
So you were a producer. So not only did you rap and perform, you also produced.
Yeah, that was my. I loved it. Really, I'm not saying that I was good at it or anything, but I did love the craft of just making beats and putting things together, and just the technical aspect of it was what I was really interested in.
So his style was kind of like East Coast when the songs he
Yes.
produced for us, and it was a little reminiscent of Wu-Tang. And the techniques that we used to record it, it was like we went back to the roots.
Yes.
Like he brought this old, I think it was a Shure mic, right? It was like Shure, what is it?
Yeah, the SM57.
There it is. There it is. We recorded with that as
Right.
opposed to all the condensers mics
Super
that
expensive $10,000 mics.
Yeah. So we did things a little bit different. Overloaded like the amps and stuff.
Overloaded
Just-
the amps,
yeah.
even overloaded the digital peak meters on purpose to make it sound really nasty, and just tried it out. And I was always a gadget guy, so I think that's where my passion comes from for
Right.
producing.
And then I think I read that you were like the first hip hop DJ in Korea.
I'm not sure if you can
I think you're
say
the first,
that.
dude.
Maybe the Korean, because there was already a place called Moon Night when I went there, and they were playing hip hop, but I'm not sure who the DJs were there at that time.
Have you heard of Moon Night?
No, I think
That's where like Clone,
Yeah.
like the Clone, they
Seotaejiwa
all
Idol.
Seotaeji.
Yeah.
It was this nightclub. It was this club in Itaewon that had all these legendary singers that came in, and that's how kind of like this revolution started in the Kayo industry.
Right, because Moon Night was a little smoky, like dingy place in Itaewon before Itaewon became such a hot spot for like date nights and things like that. It used to be a very seedy place because the army base was right there.
And it was called Hooker Hill, literally.
Really?
They used to call it. They used to call an area in Itaewon Hooker Hill.
Yeah, the Hooker Hill and then Homo Hill, right?
Oh, there's a Homo Hill. Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know
there's
about
a
the
big,
Homo.
big gay population there.
I went to a few transgender bars over there.
Oh, you
I mean,
did?
yeah, they perform and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's pretty fun.
Oh, cool. You had fun there.
Yeah, it was fun. It was,
Yeah,
it was really fun.
I've actually been to a few gay bars there because one of my best friends is gay.
And our mutual friend, right?
Yes, our mutual friend Richard Kim.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
He was my best man in my wedding, and so I've hung out with him and gone through a lot of those Itaewon nights.
Yeah.
having fun. Yeah, I've always been pretty comfortable with, the gay population and whatnot. So, but anyway, going back to the Moon Knight, that's where all of that was happening, where like all the U.S. influence was being distributed to all these Koreans that didn't really know but wanted to. That's why, like, I think Lee Juno from Satejiwa
Yeah.
basically lived there, just sucking in that culture and really developing his style from just those nights.
You know, when you think about it from that perspective, from back in those days, parents would be saying, "Oh, 거기서 시간 낭비하고 있어,
Right.
yadi yadi yadi." But then that's where he cultivated his craft.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where he learned all the influence. That's how he became the idol in Soteji.
I believe so, yeah.
Right?
I mean, or else he would have been just watching TV, AFKN. What's that show? Showtime at the Apollo.
Yeah.
Is where a lot of Koreans at that time, because there was no internet, that's where they would learn hip hop culture and just urban culture basically.
So at Moon Knight, would it just be like American performers there, like American acts? That's all it was, and then Koreans just went there to watch.
I never saw any American acts. It was more like a dance club basically with the
see.
DJ, very heavily hip hop and R&B focused.
Early
JYP
90s.
was there all the time too, right?
I believe he was. Yeah. Anyone who was interested in hip hop, like I think like guys from Deuce, they were hanging out there. We were there, just to check it out. So yeah.
Wherever that Moon Knight was, what's in that location now?
Gosh, I don't remember. I remember it was like on a slope, sort of. So, but
Maybe another tranny bar.
no, probably like Shake Shack or something. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
It's become completely.
Oh, so it's in the nicer area.
Well, I don't know. It was so long ago. I
Near
can't,
Hamilton on that side or the other side?
to be honest, I didn't really know the streets very well back in those days. We had somebody always drove us, so I just kind of know. But yeah, I can't remember exactly where. But you know how Itaewon is now completely like a commercial.
Nice.
Yeah,
posh.
it's a lot nicer than like 20 years ago. Yeah.
Right. So yeah,
It's like a total international alley in the background, with nice pubs, very upscale. I don't see anything like that here in LA, to be honest with you.
I went to a very nice Bulgarian restaurant in a back alley there.
yeah.
he's
Hey,
famous.
Zelen.
actually.
Yeah, Zelen. Yeah, that
Zelen,
guy.
yeah.
He was on my show on Arirang for a long
Yeah,
time.
I met him too. Yeah.
He's also friends with Richard.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've been to his restaurant because of that.
Yeah,
They
we
had
had
his food.
Richard's birthday party there,
Yeah,
and then
okay,
he
yeah.
had this whole he had the whole second floor just reserved for Richard. He's like, "Oh, Richard, come in!" And
Right, right.
Gets
Right.
everything ready.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how the culture has really the different cultures have really thrived there and made a thing for themselves there, and it's a place to visit now. It's pretty cool.
What was it like when you first got there? I mean, we know about all the how posh it is, now. But remember when when I went back to Korea, like in '97, I went back in '97. Back then, if you were messing up in school, or if you were doing something bad, or if you weren't listening to your parents, or if you were ditching, they sent you to Korea because the Korean education system. It was always like we heard nightmare stories about it, right? So that's like the place that you don't want to go. We thought it was like
Right.
some dungeon or something, right?
You mean just Not Itaewon, just Korea.
No,
in general,
Korea in
right?
general. Like when I went back, because you guys grew up in America.
Yeah,
and
so-
in the 90s or like in the mid 90s, when you went back, Korea was a lot different.
What year did you
Right.
move to? Would that be like 93 then that you went to Korea?
Yeah, I think it was 93 is when we first went. And to be honest, it was a culture shock because although I was born there and then came here around when I was 8 years old, most of my childhood memory is really rooted here now. So going back to Korea everything was different because coming from here, multicultural, going there where it's basically a homogenous society, especially at that time, it was very different and exciting at the same time because it's like, here we faced, I don't know if you guys faced it, but I faced racism.
Sure, right.
And just always being reminded that I am not truly American in people's eyes. So going back, it was like, oh my God, like everyone looks like me and I could blend in until I started speaking.
Right.
So there was a double, I don't know what the word is, but you felt a little bit of that feeling of I don't belong here, and as well as when I went over there, and especially when we started working, people kept reminding us that we were foreigners, and so it was a hard struggle to try to make it as one of the first Korean American acts in Korea, because we were trying to convince Koreans that, hey, we're like you, but we're not, but we kind of still are, and love me.
Right. But
Help
you
us
guys
out.
you guys ended up selling millions of albums, and you guys blew up. Like, and during that time, how was it living in Korea, like having fans? Like, what was that like?
You mean after the success?
Yeah.
So that was another like shock because I didn't expect that at all.
Wait, wasn't the first album a little bit difficult? You guys went
Yeah.
through some difficulties, right?
Yeah. So the first album was, I would say it was much more westernized, and so people didn't take it in as well. So by
Too American.
business standards, it was a failure because we really didn't get anywhere except go on a few TV shows and magazines, and we didn't sell many albums until we called it quits after the first album. We went back home and we went back to school until our manager called us and said, hey, you guys weren't a commercial success, but around town, you're known. People know about you because you guys brought a completely new flavor that Koreans were not used to. So in the music industry, everyone knows who you are. And number two, people around, like, kind of like, you would say like people in the know of music, not music
The insiders.
professionals. No, the outsiders.
Outsiders.
The people in Gangnam who were buying tapes, people who were like into something extra, they knew about us. So we sold, I think it was like 60,000 copies, which is, not a commercial hit, but it was big enough for people
Potential.
people to say, hey, there's something here. Let's do a little bit of a twist and try to do it again. So it took a few months to convince us to really try it again because it was a difficult time when we went. People would always, like DJs, they would talk about our funny accents and just how we're from America, and we don't sound the same as other acts. So it was a culture shock and also a big blow to our egos.
Yeah.
So when we were over here, we're like, oh, forget it, we're not going back. And it took us a few months to be convinced to be wanting to go back. And so when we went back, we partnered up with one of the top producers, and he really brought us that Korean sound to sort of meld what we had and what he had and put it together. And I think that was maybe the combination that was the secret formula to our success.
So what was that top song? That bam, just like overnight, this was the one. And
It
boom.
was without a doubt. It was 이밤의 끝을 잡고.
And then it was during the winter time. Was that about when it was?
It wasn't. It was summertime.
See, is that crazy or what?
So the weirdest thing was there's a just like right now we've got all these like 15-man groups, 8-man groups, 8-girl groups. Back then, well, I don't mean about that, but there is a formula to every record company's like project, right? And at the time, you did not promote slow songs in the summer. Summertime is about going
tracks.
out and like being free, vacation time, excitement. So it was all about dance hits. So in the winter time, when things get cold, people get a little bit more reserved and I don't know, maybe melancholy. You put out slow songs like ballads, and in the summertime you hit them with fast songs, dance songs. But the really interesting part about our song was we did what's called a monitoring, which is basically you present your songs in front of a test group, just random students or whatever. They come in and to listen, and they all picked that song. So we couldn't deny putting that out because it was the most popular song. So we ended up just choosing that song, which was unconventional for summertime, and it became a hit.
A huge hit.
Yeah. It basically put us on the map. Yeah.
And then you guys became superstars from there, right?
Yeah. So there were a few things going on at the time for us that really worked for us, which was right before that song hit, almost simultaneously, 공일오비, which is a huge supergroup at the time. We knew them because we had worked with one of the members. He produced our first album. So we had a good relationship, and he wanted me to come into one of their albums or their upcoming album and do a song called 단발머리, which was a huge 조용필 hit from I think the 80s, right? And it was a remake, and I rapped on it, and so it was weird because that song became a hit at the same time our song was coming to be a hit. And so we were on the top 10 at the same time. So sometimes when we were like, let's say on a Kayo top 10, the producers would intentionally put 공일오비, that song first. So I'd stand on stage, do the song, and I would remain on stage when the rest of the group members left. And then my group's members came on to do our song. So we would it was like doing two hits at the same time. So it actually kind of helped us in that way as well, I think.
Right.
Just bring us out.
But for 공일오비, only it was you performing from Solid, right?
Right. As the rapper, I guess. Yeah.
And then later, I think even when Kim Go-mo was doing live concerts, I think on his In My Pop's live album, you were rapping on there, right?
Yes, I did. Right. He asked me to do an English version because he was doing an English album of his hit album, and it was called In My Pops. Yeah, and it was all basically reformulated songs of his hits. And it was which one was that song I did? I can't even remember.
My Sunshine. Oh, how can you be mine? Yeah.
Yeah.
365 days of the year, you are my Valentine.
Yeah, that's right. My Sunshine.
You wrote all that, huh?
Yeah, I wrote that on my plane ride over there to record that. So just on the plane ride, I wrote it, and yeah.
Great, awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, you every time I hear your album, like when I first heard it, like you always had this really deep, like Chuck D type of like this voice that you can't imitate, is this black voice basically.
Yeah. So interesting you say that because Chuck D was my idol at the time when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And I do a pretty good Chuck D imitation, but so I guess you could say I was a what was that? I was an imposter. I was a Chuck D imposter, right? But I love Chuck D, Public Enemy. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back. All of that stuff was like really in my head at the time. So I really brought that, I think, style into it. And
But you also had the voice. I mean,
Yeah,
you
like-
don't, even when we hear you speak right now, you just have this deep resonating voice, you know?
Yeah, so I think I could make it deeper when I do the raps. This is my speaking voice, which
Yeah.
is sort of deep, and my inflections are kind of high sometimes, so it goes up and down. I don't know, but yeah. Normally, I don't talk like Barry White, you know. Hey, baby. Whatever.
Okay, so you were on the 공이로비 단발머리 song, and then you would perform with Solid both at the top 10. So you had 2 songs in the top 10.
Yeah, actually, we had 3.
3.
At that time, another song was also coming in, and it was actually, I think it was bad marketing, because that the other song, which was called oh my god, now it's like I can't even think of it.
나만의 친구?
나만의 친구.
That was that was one of my favorite songs too.
Yeah, so
I actually rapped that. It was actually easy to rap too.
that song was also in the top 10 at
Is
the
it
same
잊어버린
time.
아침에 난 허리에서?
Yeah.
허전한
허리에서,
나의 마음
yeah.
달래려 했어.
Hey,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So see, you know it.
So I think that was actually detrimental to us, because at one point, our two songs were actually vying for number 1. And so people had to vote. So just like the elections, you would actually dilute your votes instead of, you know what I mean? So all the votes would go to this side and that side.
One had to endorse the other
Yeah,
and drop out.
So that's what happened. So I thought it kind of hurt us in a way as well.
So none of them were number 1. Or...
Oh no, the 나만의 친구 was number 1 for
okay.
a long time.
Yeah, that was
At that
popular
time,
song.
we made a record. It was like, I think it was like Mnet's 13 or 15 weeks in a row number 1 or something like that. So,
I mean, what's it feel like to set something like that? You know, I mean, like to go over there, be hungry for one album, and then this other album comes out, and it's just like propelling you up to the skies.
yeah, it's honestly, it's now that I think about it, it just feels like it was a dream, because it went from, like what you're saying, like, you know, just being sleeping on the floor to actually sleeping on a bed, you know, and people recognizing you everywhere you go. So that was a shock.
That was around the time you've heard of 오렌지 joke, right?
Right.
That was like around the time of 오렌지 joke, where all these
Yeah.
Korean Americans, not Korean Americans, but they were fobs basically, 유학생s that were going back to Korea, and then
right.
they were kind of messing around and
Yeah,
you know,
giving
partying
us-
and stuff,
Giving
and,
us a bad name. Right?
and then
Yeah.
when you guys went there, I think us as Uptown, we totally ruined it for everyone. I think, you know. Right.
there is some of that, you know.
You know, but you guys set a really good image. Solid was like the goody two shoes.
Yeah, we did try to keep up that image of, you know, just being like more wholesome and, you know, more, I guess, not so party oriented.
And all three of you guys met at church too.
Yeah, we met at church. Actually, we went to the same church, but I met Jay at church, which is the producer, Jung Jae-yoon, and then George, Kim Jo-han, the singer, we met at the library at completely randomly. Just, you know, he was just in the library, and I was with my friends, and somehow, because we were all just, you know, Koreans, I think
Right.
somehow we just kind of connected.
So you were the guy. So you were the one that knew both of them and brought them together, maybe.
Yeah.
You were the key.
I don't know if I was the key, but, you know, back then, where we grew up, there weren't a lot of Koreans, so I think we tended to stick together. So I think that's what brought the bond between me and George, because we had mutual friends and became friends. And I said, hey, you know, why don't you come check us out, check out our church? And kind of that's where it all started. And of course, the love of music also brought us together.
Where did you guys grow up then? In California?
So I grew up in Huntington Beach.
Oh.
Yeah,
Isn't that like a total white area?
Yeah, the whitest place. In fact,
There's some racists there too. though, no?
yeah. In fact, at the time, Huntington Beach was had the largest group of skinheads in the U.S.
Right.
Back then. I don't know about now, but skinheads were huge back in the 80s. Right, they were very racist, white supremacists. Basically, I really didn't really get much of that, to be honest. So I didn't really feel that whole hatred, but there was a area where it was central. My high school was not. I went to a high school called Edison High School, and where the skinheads were, it was a Huntington Beach High School. So, yeah, we were sort of sheltered from that. Still there was racism, obviously, but yeah, it was to be an Asian. You know, you're just sort of like in the back burner, and as far as like, you know, what people consider cool and you know, out there, we were just like the quiet kids, basically.
But then how did the quiet kids go from, you know, being quiet kids in a area where there's white supremacist skinheads, and then you guys are like, hey, let's do like R&B hip hop?
So when I first immigrated, we went to New York. My parents, we had family in New York City, so that's where we first went. So I always had this affinity towards New York City. Look at my hat. That's not the reason I'm wearing this. I just told your producer, like, I'm just wearing it because of the color.
You don't have to be so honest.
But I always had this love for New York culture, and after I had been living here in California, I had an opportunity to go to New York City to meet with my cousin, and they took me on this trip. But before this, like, car trip, we visited all these places like Niagara Falls. But before that, you turn on TV, and in New York City at the time, compared to like California TV, there was a lot of hip hop going on on TV, like hip hop music videos, hip hop shows. And one of the things that came on that really, I think, influenced me was Run DMC, right? Like Rockbox, that was big at the time. And watching that, their mannerisms, their clothes, the culture of just that whole like streetness, I don't know,
the street urban,
yeah, that really just really hit me hard. And right before I saw that, there was a movie that came out called Beat Street. It was basically a movie about a DJ, and that influenced me to become a DJ. So those two things, I think, really influenced me to really shed the surfboard. Not that I ever surfed, but like really dive into that, because I think it was more so that because I was in a white surrounding, but feeling sort of like left out or not really accepted, that to me made me feel like that was my escape. You know, like, oh, I feel like I could relate more to this than where I'm at. And so that's what happened, I think.
Wow, that's like really deep, because you know, when you see the movie about NWA and how they came up, and you see Dr. Dre, I think for Dr. Dre that was kind of his escape. You know, music was. So when you see a lot of these famous producers, they start with DJing, and it always seems like they're the ones that really escape through music, and music is what drives them, their passion.
For sure. And you know, I was never. I mean, you know, my fans, when we were like at the top, they can't believe that I was just like this odd, unpopular kid, but that was very true.
Because I mean, arguably, you were one of the most popular members of that group too, as well as all the male singers from that era.
Yeah. So, you know, I can't even like believe I did all that, you know, because essentially I'm very uncool and very unfunny and very just like ordinary. But to be in that spotlight and to have had that is kind of did that really happen? It feels like a dream, to be honest.
You know, I don't think you were one of those people that were never obsessed about it either. You know, I think what happens is when you get in the industry and you feel that, you know, that ego boost, you become obsessed with it, right? You can, right? And then it could become a driving factor in whatever decision you make. You know, you're always looking for clout, just like YouTubers. They're looking for more views. They're looking for that extra push. You know, they're looking for that extra viewer.
And I think you hit a point. There are certain people who become entertainers. Probably a lot of them. You know, they want to be famous. They want to be recognized.
I was one of them.
okay, right?
Yeah, be real. I mean, that was one of the biggest driving factors.
So when someone does become, or when someone achieves that or beyond that, then it could really get to your head, and that takes over you, and you can become a monster basically, right? And we've probably seen that in real life. It happens to a lot of people. I don't think we were chasing that. Of course, we had that thought of, oh, that would be so cool, like to be famous and whatever. But since it wasn't really the ultimate thing that for us, we really did love the music. It affects you. I'm not going to lie. It does affect you when you get to that level. But ultimately, I don't think it propelled us to even go harder than that. So when I left the business, I really didn't really miss it too much. I just went back to school and became a student and became a normal
Went back to a normal
Yeah,
life.
and I enjoyed it.
That's hard to believe. It's just so hard to believe. So many people, they go back for a little bit and they start itching to come back.
Yeah.
Or they go into depression. Even some people even commit suicide. Just because they're not able to get that same kind of spotlight and limelight. But you know what? We'll hold all this talk for a little bit and be back after this break. We're going to talk more about the present and the future for Lee-jun, or John Lee of Solid. You're watching Culture Shock.
여보세요.
아빠, 나 큰일 났어.
큰일 났다. 이게 무슨 소리야?
어플로 어떤 남자를 만났는데 이상한 데로 끌려왔어.
아니 어플로 무슨 남자를 그게 무슨 소리야 그게 도대체?
어딘지 모르겠어. 지하실 같은 곳으로 끌려왔어. 돈 안 주면 아빠 다시 못 볼 거라고.
미치겠네. 아이 지금 무슨 말도 안 되는 소리야.
돈만 보내면 당신의 딸은 무사합니다.
당신 누구야?
제발 살려주세요.
당신 뭐야? 잠시만요. 아니 뭐 어떻게 해야 되는지 알려주세요.
메시지로 뱅크 어카운트 넘버 보낼 테니까 거기로 5만 불 보내세요. 허튼 짓 할 생각하지 마세요. 딱 3분 드립니다.
알겠어요. 제가 바로 여보세요? 여보세요? 저기요. 아무 메시지가 안 왔어요.
지금 당장 캐시 5만 불 준비하고 내가 다시 전화할 때까지 기다리세요.
네. 지금 당장 준비할게요. 네. 내 딸 목소리 한 번만 들려주세요.
아빠, 난 진짜 너무 무서워. 빨리 와.
너 걱정 말고 가만히 있어. 아빠가 할 거니까 울지 말고. 알았지?
아빠 어디 가?
아빠.
아빠?
엄마, 나 큰일 났어.
Okay, and we're back with Culture Shock here on Radio Korea. I'm your host, Michael Kim, filling in for Michael Won.
That's right. I'm Young Kim, and we are here with Lee-jun, also known as John Lee of Solid. You guys went back to do a quick concert, and then, well, actually, after that, you kind of started business over here, right? You dropped everything. You said, "Hey, no more Solid."
Yeah.
And was that a tough decision to make?
To quit?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was I had already been wanting to do it because I really wanted to take a break, and I just didn't feel like my energy was all there, and to be frank, that was the beginning of HOT. So I felt like
97.
Yeah, I felt like that was maybe our cue to give it up, because already we would be in the streets and people call us ajashi.
No way.
Yeah,
Really?
because HOT was, I think they were like teenagers, so that was becoming the cool thing. So I believe I was about 24, 25, and to be called that, I was to go from like the number one act to somebody calling you ajashi. It was like, oh, okay, I think might be it. So we could have gone further, as many of our peers did, like Clone and Cool, and those guys really had and DJ Dog had a long career. Maybe because we were foreigners, I felt like, oh, maybe this is our sign to pack our bags. But the two other guys, they continued, and I just felt like I wanted to go back to school, finish my degree, and just live a quiet life.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, when we were living in Korea, like I felt bad to my neighbors because our fans would just not litter, like literally graffiti our entire floor. From the elevator to our doors to the walls, and it was not easy to live a private life. Sometimes I feel like, honestly, like Michael Jackson, right? Like, not that I was anything to that level, but when you're a celebrity, you can't
guys
just go
were
to
up to that level, or even maybe more than Michael Jackson in some
I don't
areas
think
of
so,
Korea.
I don't think so, but because I would consider Seo to be like Michael Jackson in Korea.
Did you guys ever meet Seo? Like,
Yeah, only in like controlled environments.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never like.
No way.
Yeah, well, Seo at the time, like
He was still like that?
he was like, what would you say? He was like Jesus, right? It's like you never see him, right? He only appears when he wants to, and you would never hear like, oh, I saw Seo in 7-Eleven or not 7-Eleven, but whatever 편의점 they had over there, right? But yeah, so he was on a different level. Like the only time I met him was backstage of some huge concert that we were both in, and it would be more like a cordial hello. Never had like drinks or a meal with him.
That sounds like Yu Seung-jun at the time. When I was doing Sharp in Uptown, Yu Seung-jun was like that guy.
Yeah, and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious. So when you guys were at the top, and you had all those fans at your building and everything, what was an average day like when you're not performing or anything? Like, did you just stay cooped up in your room all day, or like what did you do?
Yeah, it was like, I mean, I'm a homebody, so it wasn't sad for me, but I think for the rest of
the other two
people
guys
listening, like it probably was sad because I didn't go out much. I would be like just a hermit, and when I went out, and this is what I was gonna say, like when I would go out and I had a craving to go to the local convenience store, I would be like Michael Jackson, meaning I would like go in a disguise, like I would wear a mask, have a hoodie, and just like be very like just probably more obvious than normal, right? But that was the only way to really sort of like try to not be recognized, but it was still difficult because there were always people living outside of my apartment.
Yeah, wouldn't they follow you or?
Surprisingly, no. They wanted to like stay there and just like wait for us again when we come back, because
Okay.
So I would go away, and then when I come back, we call them the daytime, morning time, and nighttime crew. There was always like a group of girls that were there, and some of them came at night, some of them came in the mornings, days. Yeah,
It was all girls though, not guys.
That'd be
100%.
creepy if a guy came. I'd be like,
100%,
yo, dude,
yeah.
you need to leave.
And I think it was like just a thing. Like guys were admirers and fans, but like the true crazy fans were the girls.
Were there any crazy fans that you remember to be crazier than other crazy fans?
Yeah. There was one crazy fan that wrote me very explicit letters. And
What did she write?
Could you share what she
I
wrote?
can't even
I want to
say
hear
it.
it.
I'll do this off camera, but yeah, it was pretty graphic.
Like,
it was like,
I'm gonna take your
wow.
pants off, yada yada, that kind of stuff.
That's nothing
Worse,
compared to.
worse.
Okay.
oh, worse,
Yeah,
really?
worse.
God,
So
jeez.
she was psychotic, I think.
Is this something that Quentin Tarantino might write or?
I'm sure everyone gets one of these once in a while, you know.
I've never gotten one of those.
Really? Like, I mean, you just take a big sample.
It's on my bucket list. Just kidding.
Just take a big sample, and somebody is bound to be crazy in that, you know.
Oh
So,
man.
yeah.
But then, as HOT started becoming more popular, did you notice the crowds outside your building getting smaller, or how did that happen?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that. It was more like, it was just basically just the sheer undeniability of HOT. I think, right? HOT was created as a almost like as a just like a side thing by a manager.
Isuman, right? Oh,
Yeah, Isuman.
Isuman.
It was under him, but the guy who like cultivated the group and really like brought him together was this other Hyung, Haegi Hyung. He was the guy that the manager. He said, "Oh, I remember before we went home for like a resting time after our third album, our manager Hyung came to us and said, "Hey, meet my kids. They're called HOT," and it's like, "Oh, they're just like some trashy kids, but you know, we'll see what we do." And so we saw them after that introduction that day, and saw them on stage. I'm like, "Hey, these guys are not like just anybody. They have some talent and they look good." And lo and behold, we went home for vacation time. Like I think we took like 3 months off, and when we came back, they were a massive hit. And you could feel the shift in just the culture, basically like the culture of the Korean fandom changing to like younger and just more, you know, like dance oriented and things like that.
was that around Candy, or was that Nukde or 전사의 후예, their first debut album, or Candy when they went Candy Pop?
It was Candy. It was
Okay.
the first one. It's like it was like I think we went home in July and came back in like September, and it was a complete night and day difference.
You know, back then SM always had this formula of their boy bands like releasing a very serious, like darkish song, right? And then right after following up with a candy pop song, right?
Oh, really?
And that was the formula for Shinhwa too. Shinhwa, they came out with Twinkling of Paradise or TOP or something, and then after they had like Usha Usha or something, and that kind of
Oh,
like
you know what?
they kind of had that
you
pattern.
Might be right, because when we saw them that first day, they were doing a very hip hop song.
Yeah.
Hip hop like song. And then, but their hit song was, I think, Candy.
Yeah,
right?
that one like just bam. SM had that formula, and they went by it with like all their boy bands back then. And this was right around the time they started doing that whole cultivating idols thing, right? You know, of schooling them and this and that, taking them really early.
I think they were the first, right? To be, well, I mean, they were not the first, but basically they took that formula and just regurgitated it.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was in the 97-ish or so. There was a station, the Howard Stern station, 97.1.
Yeah.
Was actually right in K-Town here right in front of BCD Tofu now.
Oh no, really?
And there was
wait, really?
Yeah, that was the Howard Stern station. And there was a Ricky Rackman. I don't know if you know him, but he used to do stuff on MTV, Loveline, whatever. And he was on the radio one day saying, "Hey, there's like all this commotion going on outside." And apparently it was like an HOT something. And like even on American radio, they're like, "What is going on? It's crazy. There's all these fans going crazy, crying."
Yeah, yeah.
Which, you know, so I remember that. But then that also makes me wonder about once you guys made it big and solid in Korea and you came back to the US for vacation or whatever, and you're walking around Koreatown, it must have been pretty wild for you guys, the three of you.
I don't remember. I don't think I did. If
Just stay
anything,
home?
If anything, I was trying to do everything that was not Korea focused.
You were just tired of it, huh?
Yeah, you know, we were coming home to get away from that. So I think I avoided K-Town completely.
I mean, but when you went to church, wasn't everyone be like, "Oh"?
Not really, because they already knew us from.
You had to go to a different church.
No. We went to the same church, and they just looked at us as the regular guys.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
so-
I would have flipped if I saw you in K-Town. I'm like, "Ah!"
So you always seem okay for me when because I was I think I was like I don't know like 95. I was like a teenager. I was a fan, and I remember out of the three guys, like you were the member that I wanted to be like. Like if I had to be one of these guys, I wanted to be the rapper,
Right.
the DJ guy.
It was the cane, man. I wanted the cane.
Yeah, the 8-ball cane.
Yeah.
Like,
Kane.
and yet it seems like you're the most introverted and kind of like sort of like homebody. Like
Yeah. So
It's true.
That's the I think what people can't believe which is I'm really not a good celebrity, to be honest. Like I did it because it came with the job and I had to do it. Not that I hated it, but it's not my comfort zone. It's I am introverted.
Do you know your MBTI?
So he
No.
just asked me.
Oh, he did he?
Before
we were talking
before
about
this.
it. Yeah, he doesn't know MBTI.
I don't know about that. I wish I
I'll send you a free test.
Okay.
I'll send you a link.
But I believe I was sharing with him. This is total self-diagnosed, but I feel like I am in the autism spectrum. Yeah. Probably very high functioning, but I'm not very good with with people, I think, in general. Like, not that I'm a bad personality, but I'm not a very like outgoing person, and everything I'm doing is, I think, more learned to behave a certain way with society and things like that. But by nature, I'm totally fine being home alone and being home all the time, or being alone all the time, and even though I am married and whatever.
The other two members seems like they continued with music, and then I think you do more like real estate and business, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I knew that my talents were not gonna go far, and according to myself, I think I'm the least musically talented of the group, because the other guys, they play a lot of instruments, and George can sing, Jay still produces. I have produced, but I don't feel like that was my thing. It was more like a hobby, to be honest.
Have you ever heard him DJ? Let me just say, dude, you're an artist, dude. There's just no way. I don't know why you're playing it down like that, dude.
Maybe I don't have a lot of confidence. I'm not sure, but it's more like I felt like, oh, maybe I could. I think what I like to do is I like to do something I could excel in, like without people's scrutiny, right? Like real estate is something that you can just do basically without anybody telling you, oh, this is wrong, this doesn't look good, or whatever. That's determined by the buyer, right? But whereas when you're in front of the camera or in front of an audience, you're being judged all the time. And
that's true.
That's something that is very difficult for me to sort of try to live up to. And so I don't really enjoy being on camera. Yeah.
Do you feel judged right now?
Very much so. I mean, I'm sure whoever watched this is going to say, oh, he looks like this, he looks so old, or he's gotten fat, or
Did comments and criticisms in the past, like about Solid, would that really bother you, or were you able to just brush it off?
No, because I'm a real I think I'm what do you call that, self-aware person. So I know my limitations. So if somebody told me something like that, I'd be like, yeah, you're probably right. Yeah,
Okay. So you're a homebody, like, okay,
Totally.
and you do real estate. So what do you do when you're at home? Like, other people might be partying. Like, what do you do at home? Do you read books? Do you watch movies?
Right.
What do you do?
So I don't watch many movies. The last movie I saw which was actually on the plane coming back from Paris. It was Black Panther, the new one, and then I think Interstellar. Like, I had never seen Interstellar.
That's a good one.
And I know people think that's a good movie. I couldn't finish it because I was like falling asleep. But
You have to watch the YouTube explanation version.
Oh, really?
The
Is it a pretty-
explanation version.
Is it a pretty deep movie?
Dude, it's crazy deep. I didn't understand.
Wait,
that
you
one.
didn't like it, huh?
Well, like, I was watching it and then like I fell asleep, so I didn't see all of
okay.
it. But just to explain, like, this is an old movie, right? This is like what,
2014.
2014. So
It's
like,
that old?
Or 2013,
Oh my!
yeah.
I am so old.
So that's
I'm thinking that was like from a couple years ago.
So yeah, I don't really watch many movies, but that's like the recent movie that I've seen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to watch Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Right,
Is that what it's
right,
called?
yeah.
Man, that thing just was flying over me like really fast. Like I was like, what is going on? I know it has to do with like, you know, different realities and dimensions, and they were just going real fast. So I couldn't get it. I just turned it off after about 30 minutes.
Did you watch that movie? I don't even know what movie he's talking about.
Yeah, it won a
just
bunch
won
of
an Oscar.
awards.
What?
like,
What is it called?
Everything Everywhere All at Once. Very short round from Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I forget his.
Michelle Yeoh.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
He
that's
just
like
won
his
an
first
Oscar.
role after Indiana
Yeah.
Jones, right?
I don't know if it was his
Yeah,
first
it's
role.
Like he
his
couldn't
first
get
big
his
one.
he couldn't get a big role.
He's been a stunt coordinator for a long time. Martial arts. But
Okay.
this is his first major role because he said he got influenced by Crazy Rich Asians to really try to come back. And
Well, I'm glad he came
What a
back.
comeback.
I'm glad he
What a
came back.
comeback,
Yeah,
right?
right.
yeah, but yeah.
So you're not a movie guy? Are you a documentary guy then, or
I am a documentary guy.
okay,
I
National
love
Geographic or like politics or
everything. I love everything. I love.
He
things about
introduced me to
history.
YouTube deep diving.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I
What's
mean,
that?
YouTube is a rabbit hole that you might not want to get into because there's a lot of falsehoods, a lot of stretching of the truths, and also a lot of truths. But you really have to dig through a lot to really discern what is real and what is not. And sometimes it's very
yeah.
difficult. So I do watch a lot of YouTube. And
All right, let me ask you a question. I mean, do you watch news or media or what's going on these days?
Yeah,
Do you
know,
think
I'm
people are
almost-
getting the right information from media, for example?
you know, this is a rabbit hole that we can get into, but I believe the media is controlled by a certain group. I'm not sure who that is, but I do know that it is definitely being controlled. And whenever somebody controls the storytelling to the world, that is basically what is real to people. But what I see is a separate reality, that cannot be told because there's just no platform to do it. So that's the problem with media right now, where people believe everything they see, because why wouldn't the news be telling me the truth, right?
Right.
But I just don't believe that to be the case. Whoever controls what comes out is whoever controls the world, and that's the way it is. And unfortunately, it is pretty one-sided, I think, right now.
I think at Radio Korea we're very well aware of this. Because when you have the mass media, I think like 95% of the media that people consume comes from like maybe 5 companies.
Yeah.
And if just those 5 companies can, cooperate to just make sure only certain messages go out or limit other things from getting out, then yeah, you can control how people see and view things. But with so much content out there, how do you determine what's real and what's
I think it comes to the individual to really look at everything from all sources. So when you hear something like, everybody's attacking the trans community and whatever, okay, yeah, take that, but then also look at the other side and see what's really happening to help the trans community, and then decide for yourself, right? So
you like to look at not just your side. You want to know what the opposing side thinks.
You have to.
Right.
You have to, because you have to accept the fact that whoever's dispersing this message really wants to convince you, right? Mm-hmm. And like all stories, there's 2 sides to a story. So you really have to listen to the other side and then say, okay, this sounds really sound to me, and then decide from there. So yeah, I'm not attacking any side, but it really just comes to the individual to really do their research and have an open mind.
Let me ask you a question. See, after Solid, after all the experiences that you've gone through, now you're a father, and your main job is being a good dad. You want the best for your kids, and for your family, right? Do you like where things are going?
You mean
in
just
this state
society,
of
or?
in society,
in the world,
in the world? Well, let's say this country, for example.
Country.
Let's keep it localized. California.
No, you say California is too political. Just
All right, fine.
You're
Do you like the way things are
going?
going? I mean, like, you know, in this society, we're old fogies. We could be considered condes, right?
I'll be honest. I cannot see the society getting better. It's only getting worse. And I don't know why, but it's getting just to a point where craziness is being like just accepted. And like, sometimes you wonder why. What is the reason that we need to have these sexually explicit books in public schools? Why is that necessary? And some people might argue, well, this is reality. We're trying to teach reality. But I'm like, but do we need it? Like, do we need that level where our kids are not even at that age? They're not even sexual. So why are you trying to push that down their throats? You know, cram that down into their fragile minds. It's not necessary. So, you know, I cannot, unless we completely just go back to being like, you know, like Puritans, right? It's just, I just don't see us getting any better. It just seems like society's devolving until some crazy thing happens and it just all implodes, and maybe we'll have a new beginning. But until then, man, I don't know.
Maybe it's happened before.
yeah, maybe
Civilizations imploded on itself,
Yeah.
goes through an ice age,
Sure, we've had
a pole shift, and then
yeah.
everything changes.
Yeah, they found old 3D maps in China from thousands of years ago, or
That's-
like a battery in Baghdad that's like thousands of years old.
Oh yeah, the Baghdad.
What?
is
A
very
battery?
famous. Yes.
Yeah,
It's,
so
it's
like-
actually a very famous.
Oh, it's like made of rock, right? And then
no,
it's like,
I think it was like a kind of like a clay pot.
oh,
right?
with like
yeah,
some
yeah,
copper.
I've seen that.
We've had advanced civilization before, I think, and maybe destroyed ourselves or something. Who knows?
Yeah, so you know, that I feel like is gonna happen someday. There's probably the society's collapse as we know it will probably come, and then there's gonna be a new, fresh beginning with like new ideas and, you know, reform and all that stuff. But
It's not something that like a Democrat or Republican fix. It's just
yeah,
Really?
and if you believe that Democrats and Republicans are really fighting for you, you know, I'd have to.
You got
argue.
another thing coming.
Yeah, no, you know, politics is a business, really.
right.
You know, and I think I've heard someone say that politicians are not really in it to help you; they're just in it to help themselves, and kind of tend to believe that.
I believe it too. Before I didn't, but now I do 100%
Yeah.
because, you know, I'm an adult, and when I'm looking at like sort of my family, you know, you want the best for your family and those around you. And I think, you know, if you have that kind of power, it's very easy to fall into a very selfish type of way of wielding that power.
Sure, and just looking at our governor, I know what he's doing. It's all a campaign to become president.
Yeah,
It's
right?
like, why is he pushing all these like hardcore agendas? And it's all to prove a point. Like I'm a great leader. I'm gonna be, you know, a great leader for you, the country. And you know, he's all in.
Did you see him on Hannity?
I did not, but I heard about it. He destroyed the Hannity show. That's what I heard.
It's
Right?
kind of
I heard he did pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's a good talker. I was
Oh, yeah, he's
impressed.
excellent. He's
I was
excellent.
like, wow, this guy's good.
He's a good speaker.
He's good.
I think he did a pretty good job during the pandemic to really defend what he was doing with California. But ultimately, you know, I think he's really serving himself. not
Well, I
anything
personally
else.
think he's evil.
Okay.
I personally think he's evil,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he's good though. I mean, he's a good
Right.
talker. I'm like, wow, I'm impressed.
But then with that though, we gotta start wrapping up. Though I really want to thank you for coming in. You know, it's like I was a fan, like, you know, in the '90s, and it's great to meet you and
Thank you
talk
very
to you.
much.
And you know, thanks to Young for bringing you, you know, asking you to come on. Yeah.
No,
I always
appreciate
trip
you
out at
guys.
how humble you are all the time. It's just so weird.
I tried to act like it at least.
You're
Yeah.
serving yourself.
No, but thank you guys for having me. It was really great. I enjoyed.
I hope you'll
this
come back
time.
to talk about politics. And
Yeah,
things,
call me
yeah.
back anytime.
Yeah, you know what? We could have this political talk. I mean, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, this is a fun show. Check it out. Seriously.
For sure, for
All right, John.
sure.
Thanks again.
All right, thank you.
All right, guys. Subscribe, like, and of course, join us for our next episode. I have been Young Kim, and
Michael Kim filling in for Mike Wan. Thank you for tuning in.
have a good day.